Last season, we saw that Song managed to win the game, and obviously in the process, everyone who played with him died, including his lifelong friend. After Song finished the game, he took that huge amount of prize money and went back to his life. But when he tried returning to normal life, he found everything had changed. His mother had passed away, and his daughter had left for America. Still, Song didn't give up. He decided to go to America to be with his daughter, but on his way to the airport, he saw something that made him change his mind and stay in Korea. That something was basically the game's recruiter, the same guy who initially got Song into the game, standing in the subway with someone else, trying to lure that person into joining, just like he did with Song. Seeing this drove Song crazy. He tried to run after the recruiter, but the guy managed to get away. At that point, Song decided he would remain in Korea until he tracked down that recruiter and whoever was behind the game. His goal was to end that twisted game once and for all. Alright, sounds good. The new season picks up right where the previous one ended. After everything that happened, we see Song leaving the airport. Suddenly, he gets a call from an unknown person, most likely the recruiter. This mystery caller tells Song he should have just boarded that plane and left Korea for good. Song tells him that he's not leaving. He's staying put until he finds both the recruiter and the person in charge of the game and finishes them off. Then he hangs up. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, we see Officer Huang. If you don't recall, Officer Huang was the policeman who snuck into the game looking for his missing brother, Ho. Then he discovered that Ho, his very own brother, was actually running the whole thing. At the end of last season, Ho shot him, causing Huang to fall into the water, and we all assumed he died. But it turns out Huang survived and is currently in the hospital because someone rescued him. 2 years pass after all these events, and Huang is now working as a traffic cop. On this day, after finishing his shift, he meets up with a friend and starts talking. We learn from their conversation that someone found Huang in the water and saved him, and after that, Huang reported everything to the police about that strange island where poor people are made to play deadly games. He asked them to find the island. The police actually searched for it, but no one found anything. Everyone just assumed Huang was out of his mind. When he got his job back, they demoted him to traffic duty, basically reducing his rank. We also learn that Huang hasn't given up. He regularly goes out to sea with a ship's captain named Park, the same person who rescued him from the water, hoping to find that island where the game is held. But so far, neither Huang nor Park has found a trace of it. Meanwhile, we cut back to Song, who's living all alone in a rundown hotel. In fact, he's been there for the past 2 years, ever since he decided not to fly to America. Now, Song hears someone knocking on his door and goes to open it. He's startled to see the game master standing there in his creepy mask, holding the heads of 2 people, Song's friend, whom Song had killed in the game, and the pickpocket who played alongside him in the game. Song is paralyzed with fear, and then suddenly, boom, he snaps awake. It was all a nightmare. The moment he wakes up, Mr. Kim shows up. Mr. Kim is one of the loan sharks who used to chase Song around back before he got into the game. We find out that ever since Song got back from the game, he's repaid all his debts to Mr. Kim. Not only that, Song has hired Kim and his men to help him search the subway stations for the game's recruiter, the guy who brings people into the game, so that Song can find him and figure out how to reach the game's organizers and get revenge. Apparently, Kim and his men have been searching for this recruiter for 2 years now, with no luck. Right now, Song is handing Mr. Kim more money than usual, so Kim can hire even more men and intensify the search. On top of that, Song promises Kim that if he catches the recruiter, he'll give him 1 billion won, Korean currency. And don't be shocked by that billion number. The won is a weaker currency, so hearing figures like that is normal. Kim takes care of business with Song and leaves. The next day, we see Kim gathering a ton of men, briefing them on their mission, basically to scour all the subway stations looking for the recruiter. They spend days searching, while Song stays in contact with them, but they can't find a thing. Then, one day, Kim and his right-hand man, Sok, are sitting in the subway when suddenly they spot the recruiter playing that same sign-up game with someone, trying to convince them to join, just like he did with Song. Finally, the recruiter hands this person the game's business card and takes off. Kim and Sok can't believe their eyes. They immediately call Song and tell him they've located the guy. Song tells them to send him the address so he can come over, and they all agree on a plan. At the same time, the person who was just talking to the recruiter gets a phone call from a woman named Hye, but he doesn't pick up. He's thinking about whether or not to join the game. Meanwhile, Hai is actually at an OBGYN clinic, but when the man doesn't answer her call, she gets frustrated and leaves. Hai also has one of those game cards and is thinking about whether to join. But who exactly is Hai, and who is that guy? We'll find out soon. For now, we go back to Kim and Sok, who keep following the recruiter until he heads to some park, a place filled with tons of homeless people. The recruiter goes up to each homeless person and gives them a choice. Either take a piece of bread or play a risky game that could win them some money. Almost everyone chooses the money game, and nearly everyone loses. When they lose, the recruiter gathers up that bread they all rejected and throws it on the ground. He then tells them he's not the one who threw away the bread. They effectively did that themselves when they chose to lose and didn't pick it. He finishes by stomping on the bread, God forbid, and completely ruining it, then takes off. Note, my friend, the recruiter's not doing this to recruit more people into the game. He's just lost his mind from working with the game's management for so long. That's all there is to it. Anyway, once the recruiter leaves the park, Kim and Sok keep following him. Meanwhile, Song is on his way, driving as fast as he can to catch up with them. But on the way, a police car pulls him over. Two cops step out, one of whom is Huang. Huang doesn't approach Song. Instead, the other cop does and issues Song a ticket. Song takes the ticket and drives off. The other cop returns to Huang and hands him the ticket. As soon as Huang sees the name on it is Song's, he freaks out and decides to track him down because Song might lead him to the game. Back to Kim and Sok. They decide to jump the recruiter, capture him, and hold him until Song arrives, so he can't escape. But the moment they try, they regret it. The recruiter beats them senseless, basically leaving them for dead. Some time passes, and Kim and Sok come to, realizing they've been taken hostage to some unknown place. Without any ceremony, the recruiter tells them they're going to play Russian roulette. Russian roulette, in short, is where you take a revolver that has only one bullet in the cylinder, spin it, and fire at yourself. The unlucky one gets the bullet and dies. He makes them play until Kim is killed. Sok is terrified, so the recruiter seizes the opportunity and demands, "Who sent you after me?" Sok admits it was Song. The recruiter is thrilled and decides he'll go directly to Song himself. Speaking of Song, he arrives at the last place where Kim and Sok were seen, but he only finds a blood stain. He realizes the recruiter did something to them. He leaves and goes back to the hotel. As he steps inside, he's stunned to see the recruiter is there waiting for him. The recruiter asks Song, "Why were you looking for me?" Song tells him he wanted to thank him for letting him join the game and win all that money. The recruiter says, "But I'm not the owner of the game," so Song demands the recruiter take him to the owner. He even calls the recruiter a dog working for them. This insult doesn't bother the recruiter, who decides to tell Song his story. He explains that a long time ago, he worked with the game, part of those masked workers or soldiers who kill players that lose. He says that one time, he found his own father in the game. When his father lost, the recruiter was forced to shoot him without a shred of remorse, because the recruiter believes all poor people who enter the game are trash, who deserve to die. He goes on to say he wants to kill Song right now, but since they're both trash, he figures they should just settle it with Russian roulette. The recruiter takes out his revolver, and he and Song start taking turns firing the single bullet at themselves. Sooner or later, that bullet is bound to take one of them out. In the end, the bullet goes off in the recruiter's turn, killing him instantly, finally putting an end to him. But Song learns nothing more about the game. Meanwhile, we see Huang tracking Song's car. He finds that the car is registered to some company. He goes to the building of that company and realizes it belongs to Kim, who meets there with his men. Huang breaks in and eventually finds one of Kim's men entering. He overhears him on the phone saying Kim found the game recruiter Song's been hunting, but then disappeared. Now they need to find Kim and Sok. This is how Huang learns that Song is looking for someone from the game. Plus, he's discovered where Song is staying. Based on that, Huang goes to the hotel where Song is staying, heads inside, and checks one of the rooms, where he finds Sok tied up. Turns out the recruiter left Sok there, bound in one of the rooms. Huang unties him and frees him, then searches the rest of the hotel until he comes upon Song, who's sitting there with the recruiter's dead body. Huang pulls a gun on Song, but before long, Sok appears and strikes Huang on the head, knocking him out cold. After that, Song asks Sok who he is. Sok tells him he's Kim's assistant. This is actually the first time they've ever met face to face, so Song doesn't harm him. A little while later, Huang wakes up to find himself tied up by Song, who interrogates him. Who are you, exactly? Huang tells him he's a cop and that they've met before in the game when Huang was disguised as one of the masked soldiers. Huang says he only infiltrated the game to find his missing brother, Ho, but never did. He also tells Song that he met the person in charge, the one we refer to as the leader or the manager. Obviously, it's Ho, but Huang doesn't mention their siblings. He explains he's been searching for that island where the game is hosted and that they should work together to find it and bring the organizers down. Song agrees. He shows Huang a card he found on the recruiter. It suggests the recruiter was supposed to meet the game's leader in a particular place in a few days. So, Song plans to go there, kidnap the leader, and learn the game's location. Then they'll destroy it once and for all. Huang agrees to join Song's plan. Now, Song forms a small team. Himself, Huang, and Silk. Song takes them to a room where he shows them a huge pile of money, the leftover cash from his winnings in the game. He tells them he'll give them all the money or split it with them once they complete the mission. Huang and Silk agree. Then Song shows them another room packed with weapons. He explains they'll need a few more people who know how to handle guns and help them. Silk agrees and says he can bring in some pros. The next day, Song goes to the home of the mother of his friend who died in the game. You might remember that friend. He notices she's now taking care of a little boy, the younger brother of that pickpocket girl who died in Season 1, if you recall her. Song checks in on them, then goes to see a certain broker who had connections to that pickpocket girl. Song tells the broker that the girl's mother has been released from prison, so he gives him the mother's address so she can go claim her son. After that, Song goes back to the hotel where Huang and Sok have already gathered. Sok has brought along a bunch of men to help with the mission, all of them ex-cops with combat skills. This makes Song happy because it means he can carry out his plan more effectively. Later, Song calls in a doctor to remove one of his teeth and replace it with a tracking device. We'll see why soon enough. The next day, Song, Huang, and Sok show up at a casino-type place, the very spot where the recruiter was supposed to meet the leader in a few days. There's a masquerade party happening there. Song figures the leader will come wearing a mask so no one can recognize him. Song and Sok head inside to search, leaving Huang outside. Before long, Huang spots two people dressed in the game soldiers' outfits going into the casino. He rushes in behind them to watch what they do. One of these two soldiers sneaks up on Sok and zaps him with a stun gun, knocking him out. The other one finds Song and orders him to come along. Song goes with him, and the soldier leads him to a fancy limousine. Song gets in, but he can't see who's driving. Inside, there's some kind of microphone, and the leader starts talking to Song over it, telling him to forget about the game and go live his life. Naturally, Song refuses. Meanwhile, Huang and the men Sok hired, led by Kim, jump into their cars to chase after the limo. They want to catch the leader and his henchmen, but suddenly, another masked soldier appears and opens fire on Huang, Kim, and their men, disabling their car. Huang manages to get in contact with Song, telling him what happened and that they can't keep up the chase. At that point, Song thinks quickly. He tells the leader he wants back into the game. The idea is that Huang can track him to the island using the device implanted in Song's tooth, then bring Kim and the rest to shut the game down. Sure enough, the leader agrees to let Song return to the game. Suddenly, knockout gas fills the limo, and Song passes out. He's on his way to the island again. We see the leader was actually in the car with him the whole time, only separated by a partition, so Song couldn't see his face. On another note, we're introduced to a woman named Kang. She's from North Korea and was smuggled into South Korea without her daughter. Her husband is dead. She goes to see the same broker Song visited. Remember him? She asks him to find her daughter in North Korea and try to bring her over. And even though it's a long shot, he says he'll try. Then Kang goes to work. She's employed at children's birthday parties where she dresses up in a rabbit mascot costume and entertains kids. But her life is miserable and she's in a terrible mental state. So she takes one of those game cards, calls the number, and says she wants to join. We then see Kang heading to some shipping containers. She climbs inside one where she's given a game soldier's uniform to wear. So apparently, Kang is going to join the game as one of the masked soldiers. We don't yet know her true intentions. The next day, Song wakes up in the same main hall from the first season, the place where all the players first woke up. He realizes he's been assigned player number 456 again, just like last time. A short while later, a group of masked soldiers enters. Their captain speaks to everyone, explaining the rules. Basically the same as last season. Once you've signed up, you have to keep playing. You can't walk away from any challenge. If the majority votes to quit, then the game will stop. He then announces a new twist. After each game, there will be a vote on whether they want to continue or end it. Right away, several players start complaining. Here we meet some new contestants, like player number 333, Myung, who is a famous YouTuber in Korea. Recently, he told his followers to invest in some cryptocurrency platform, and everyone lost money. He lost all his money too and went into debt, so here he is. We also meet player number 230, Sue, who used to be a famous rapper. He followed Myung's advice, invested all his money, lost everything, and now he's an addict, a bit unhinged. Then there's player number 100, who's 10 billion won in debt, the highest debt among the group. We also see player number 7, Sick, who's shocked to find his own mother here as well. Neither of them had any idea the other had signed up. And we meet plenty more characters. Everyone now starts signing the contracts and taking those ID photos, just like in season 1. By chance, Song bumps into a friend named Bae. Song's surprised Bae is here and is really worried about him. He tells Bae to stay close and not wander off, and Bae agrees. Then they all head to the first game, which is red light, green light, same as before. This game is basically the giant doll that turns its head away from the players, and while it's not looking, the players run toward the finish line. Suddenly, the doll calls out, red light, green light, spins back around, and uses sensors in its eyes to detect any movement. Anyone caught moving is shot dead on the spot. Right before the game starts, Song realizes that the tooth with the tracking device has been removed. He figures they took it out while he was unconscious in the leader's car. Song panics because that means no one from outside can come and rescue him now. He's terrified for everyone in there. He tries to warn the others, telling them they must follow his directions exactly or they'll die. Nobody believes him at first. They don't think anyone's actually going to die. Suddenly, some girl who was hanging out with Sue is shot and everybody freaks out. Chaos erupts, bullets fly, people drop dead. We see that Kang and others like her are positioned at certain posts. They receive the players' ID numbers from the sensors and then snipe anyone who moves. In the middle of all this, Kang notices player number 246, a man she recognizes well. He has a little daughter she entertained at a birthday gig, and that girl is sick. Kang feels sorry for him, so even though 246 is moving, she refuses to shoot him. Eventually, the initial panic subsides, and everyone starts listening to Song's instructions. They move carefully toward the finish line. Everyone follows Song's advice, except for Sue, who takes a pill mid-game and starts going nuts, pushing people so they move and get killed for no reason. Still, most people do as Song says, and a good number manage to cross the finish line. Song notices someone collapsed on the ground and injured, so he and another female contestant go back into the field to help him. They carry him out of the playing zone, but Kang shoots and kills him anyway, because technically, if you get shot inside the play area, you're as good as dead. He only managed to crawl out, but the rule says if he was wounded in the arena, he has to be finished off, so that's what she does. Once the game ends, the soldiers return everyone to the main hall. They announce that 91 players died in the first game, so an equivalent amount of cash is dropped into the huge piggy bank hanging from the ceiling. That sum is 9 million won for those who lost. They remind everyone that if the game is played to the end, the total prize pot will be 456 billion won, which stuns everyone. Then they hold a vote to decide whether to keep playing or not. Song pleads with them to stop and explains he's played this before, and everyone who did it with him died. He doesn't want that happening to them. Some people agree and vote to quit, but others, like player 100, the businessman, Dae, and Sue, strongly oppose Song. When the votes are tallied, it's a tie. The deciding vote goes to player number 1. Player number 1 votes to continue, so everyone is forced to keep playing. We discover that player number 1 is actually the leader, the same person who set all this up, secretly participating in the game so he can be sure Song doesn't manage to win again. We leave that situation and return to Hwang, Sok, Kim, and their men. They arrive with Captain Park at the island, only to find no sign of Song. They just find the tracking device lying around. They realize the game organizers must have removed it from Song. There's no way to locate him now, which leaves them all feeling defeated. But they decide they won't give up and will keep trying. Nonetheless, Hwang refuses to lose hope. He heads back to his old police department and tries talking to his superiors, asking them to come help him find that island. They think he's insane, so he's fired once and for all. But Hwang is still determined to continue searching with Park, Seok, Kim, and the rest of the crew. Speaking of Seok, we see him hanging out with Park, and Park keeps asking him why they're so determined to find this island. We start to suspect that maybe Park is trying to trap Seok into revealing more info. We're not sure why. Leaving them for now, we go back to the game itself, where Song is sitting with Bae. Bae is having breakfast and offers Song some, but Song refuses because he just can't stomach anything after the group voted to keep playing. He tells Bae he's sure they're all going to die here. Right then, the leader, or player number 1 as everyone else thinks, approaches Song. He says, "If you really don't want us to die, help us. You've played these games before. You can guess what the next one will be. Tell us so we can be ready." That's when a young man named Du joins them. He says he used to be in the Navy and wants to team up with Song. He asks Song to share what he knows about the next game. Song explains that the second game is the shape game, the one where you pick a shape, triangle, circle, umbrella, or square, and each person receives a honeycomb candy with their chosen shape stamped on it. They have to cut it out perfectly without cracking it. He advises everyone to choose the triangle since it's the easiest. They're thrilled and thank Song for the tip. Next, we jump to Myung the YouTuber, who's sulking to himself. Suddenly, Sue and another guy named Ju walk up to him. Both of them lost money in that crypto fiasco Myung promoted. They beat him up for it. Myung isn't having it, so Ho intervenes. Remember, Ho is the secret leader, disguised as a contestant. He grabs Sue and Ju, knocking them around viciously. Everyone is impressed by his strength, but they have no idea where it really comes from. They don't realize he's the one in charge of the entire game. That same night, Ho approaches Song, strikes up a conversation, and spins some lie about having a sick wife and joining the game to afford her treatments. Song believes him and sympathizes. Meanwhile, we discover that the masked soldiers are working with a doctor who extracts healthy organs from the bodies of dead players. We don't know if the doctor is colluding with Ho or doing this behind his back, but the point is, the soldiers find a corpse that has 2 bullet wounds, one in the leg and one in the head, which is totally forbidden. They inform the leader's right-hand man, who's currently overseeing the game. He summons Kang because she's the one who gave that guy those 2 shots. They talk, and we learn that the right-hand man wants bodies that are still somewhat alive so they can harvest the organs properly. Kang is supposed to know that. Nonetheless, she killed him. He also mentions he didn't think Kang would disobey him, especially after he saved her when she fled North Korea and killed an entire battalion of North Korean soldiers. Kang doesn't really care. She tells him she's just doing her job. Anyway, the next day rolls around and it's time for the second game. The players head to the playing area, only to find out it's not the shape game after all. It's changed to a group game. The management tells them to split into teams of 5. Everyone turns on Song, especially player number 100, Dae, who's furious and blames Song for giving them bad info. Ho, the secret leader, steps in and stops Dae's rant. Dae leaves in a huff. So right now, Ho, Song, Bae, and Do are all on the same team. They just need one more player, so Do goes off to recruit someone. Meanwhile, a girl named Hye is looking for a team. She's the one we saw at the OBGYN at the very beginning who was thinking about joining the game. Just then, Myung comes over and starts talking with her. We find out Myung and Hye are married and she's pregnant with his child. He pretty much abandoned her and she was considering terminating the pregnancy, but ultimately didn't. She's still carrying the baby. Myung asks Hye to join his team, but she refuses because she doesn't trust him after he let her down. She goes to Song's team and asks to join, and they agree. Elsewhere, Sue, Gyu, and one more person find a boy and girl and add them to their group. Sik and his elderly mother can't find any team except for one that has 3 other girls. Cho, a shaman woman, a religious title, and a younger girl named Min. So they form a team. At this point, all the groups are formed. The game's management explains the new challenge. Each 5-person team has to tie their ankles together, and each member will play a small minigame in order. Each minigame has to be won, and as soon as one teammate finishes successfully, it moves on to the next person, and so on. Whichever team finishes first wins. And yes, each team competes against another 5-person team. Whichever team fails to complete the challenge first, or within the time, loses. The minigames include Dakji. You have a folded paper tile that you slam on another tile on the ground trying to flip it. There's also a stone throwing game where you toss a stone at a target rock to knock it over. Another is a 5 marbles game, which is a bit girly. You toss your 5 marbles in the air and try to catch them all in your hand. There's another one called the bee spinner, where you spin a top shaped like a bee with a string and so on. After hearing the rules, the matches begin. 2 teams of 5 face off, but because they're all tied together at the ankles, it's ridiculously hard to maneuver. In their first attempt, those 2 teams fail to finish in time, so the masked soldiers open fire on them, killing all 10 players. Seeing that terrifies everyone. Sue pops more pills to calm his nerves and gives some to Gyu as well. Soon enough, the next teams get called to play. One of those teams is 6 group, the one with his mother, Cho, the shaman, and Min. They're scared out of their minds and clueless about what to do. Everyone joins the game, and they start with the first challenge, the Daki game. As we've mentioned, this involves 2 cubes or envelopes, one on the ground and the other in the player's hand. The goal is to flip one envelope with the other. The person who can successfully complete this task wins the game. Next up is the second game, the stone game. Here, a player grabs a stone and strikes the one on the ground, trying to flip it over. Whoever manages to do this wins. After that, they move on to the third game, the 5 stones challenge. This is played by Sek, who manages to win this round as well. Following this is the bee or wasp game, which falls under the responsibility of the shaman. After some struggle, she manages to win this round too. Finally, they encounter a rather unusual game where they must bounce something resembling a ball 5 times without letting it touch the ground. They successfully perform the task and win this game as well. Team Sek and her mother emerge victorious in this competition. After winning, the teams enter the next phase. There are 2 main teams, Team Su and Team Dai. They compete and more teams join in, with some winning and others being eliminated. In the end, it's Team Seong against another team. Seong and her team enter with the first game, the Daki, which she plays and wins. Next, Bai competes in the stone game and wins on his first try. Then Du joins to play the 5 stones game and also wins. Afterward, it's his turn in the bee or wasp game. Although he loses a few times initially, he eventually secures a victory. Lastly, Seong attempts the ball bouncing game. She manages to bounce the ball 4 times, but it inevitably falls to the ground. She assists Seong by moving towards the ball, and with a swift move, she touches the ball with her leg and wins the game. Seong and her team safely exit the game, while the opposing team unfortunately gets eliminated. Once the game concludes, Kanj heads back to her room. At that moment, 2 soldiers from the game follow her, take control, and warn her against interfering with their operations, which involve organ trafficking. It's revealed that the assistant leader, who currently manages the game, was behind the threats. Kanj agrees to their terms, and they reach an understanding. After the game ends and everyone returns to their rooms, soldiers arrive to inform them that 110 players were eliminated in the last round. The total prize money of 78 million each is up for grabs among the remaining players. They ask everyone to vote on whether to continue the game or for each person to take their share and end it. The vote results are disastrous, as most decide to continue the game, which frustrates Seong, though she feels powerless to change the outcome. The next day, Myung goes to the bathroom, and Sue, along with his team, attempts to assault him. However, Seong and her allies arrive just in time to save Myung. Seong then warns everyone that the players might kill each other at night to increase their earnings, similar to what happened to her in the first season. She urges everyone to create a barrier and stay safe under their beds. Everyone listens to her advice and does so. The day passes peacefully, and the next day marks the start of a new game. Everyone gathers in the game arena and listens to the new game instructions. Essentially, there will be a large rotating disc that spins the players. Each player receives a specific number corresponding to their team. Teams quickly form, and each team enters through designated doors to begin the game. As everyone boards the rotating disc, it starts spinning them around. Meanwhile, Hwang has brought another ship to split their group between Park's ship and the second one, allowing them to explore a larger area. Hwang, Park, Seok, Kim, and his team set sail on both ships in search of the island where Seong is, where the games are held. After some time, they arrive at an island. Hwang, along with Kim and his team, disembarks to explore, hoping this is the island they're searching for. Unfortunately, they encounter a hidden explosive device that detonates, killing one of them and injuring another. Realizing the game's administration is monitoring their movements, or that there's a traitor among them, they return to the ship and discuss the situation. No one is convinced there's a traitor, and they believe the game administrators are simply watching them. Consequently, they decide to change their meeting point to avoid detection and agree to continue exploring the designated island. Meanwhile, back on the rotating disc, Seong and her team are preparing for the next round. The game proceeds as follows. The disc stops, announces the team numbers, and each team must go to their designated rooms. If a team has too many members, some are eliminated. If there are too few, remaining players are killed. The disc continues to spin, and the first team of 10, including Seong, Do, Bai, and others, successfully enters their room and completes the challenge. They return to the disc, which spins again, this time forming teams of 4. Seong instructs herself, Bai, and Do to join another team. Everyone agrees and enters the rooms, successfully passing the challenge. However, Sek, her mother, Cheo, and Min leave the shaman behind and hide in a single room, making the shaman feel betrayed and unsure of what to do. The disc spins once more, announcing new teams of 3. Sek, who left her mother, joins Kanj and takes her into a room. Luckily, Xiang and her team rescue Sek by taking her mother with them into a room. Next, the disc spins again, declaring teams of 6. Xiang and a few others enter a room, including Cheo and Min, but Myung arrives at the last moment, replaces Min, causing Min to lose and be eliminated. This enrages Cheo, leading to a fight with Myung. However, everyone understands that Myung has the right to defend herself to stay alive, and the situation de-escalates. The disc spins one final time, announcing teams of 2. Seung and Bai enter a room and find only one person inside. She asks the person to leave, but he refuses. Seung has no choice but to choke him until he dies, terrifying Bai, who begins to feel uneasy about him. Regardless, the game ends this way, and everyone returns to the sleeping hall. The masked officials inform them that exactly 100 people remain in the game, with a prize of approximately 300 million to be shared equally. A vote is held to decide whether to continue or end the game. The vote is tied, 50-50. The game soldiers announce they will postpone the decision until tomorrow and hold another vote to determine whether to proceed or stop the game. At this moment, Myung approaches Hai, attempting to reconcile and convince her to marry and have a child with her once they leave. However, Hai doesn't trust her and rejects her proposal. Seong discovers that they've been given bags of food laced with poison, which terrifies her because she realizes the administrators plan to have them kill each other if conflicts arise, allowing the game to continue in a more brutal manner. She finds out that En-soo and Gyu have approached someone who was supposed to stop the game. They ask him to retract his decision in the new vote, but Myung arrives and tries to stop them. However, Soo and Gyu, who have issues with Myung, ignore her and escalate the situation further. Myung gathers many players who oppose the game to confront Soo and Gyu. In response, Soo and Gyu rally those who want the game to continue to fight against Myung and her allies. Chaos ensues as everyone starts attacking each other. Soo manages to knock down Mang and continues choking her until she pulls out a fork and stabs him in the neck in a shocking scene. Soo dies, and there's a moment of relief from the tension. However, the chaos continues as players start killing each other in a very bloody scene. Shortly after, the soldiers arrive, take control, and bring everyone back to the sleeping hall. Seong and everyone present are shocked to discover there was a battle between those who wanted the game to continue and those who wanted it to stop. Let's refer to these groups as the supporters and the opponents from now on. After returning to the sleeping hall, Dai, the leader of the supporters, begins counting the players with him to see how many have died. He discovers that 3 members have been killed. On the other side, Seong and her group count their losses and find that 2 members have died, which delights them because it means they can win the vote against the other team and end the game. However, Seong has another plan. She knows that the supporters will attack them at night to eliminate them, so everyone must be prepared. She informs everyone that their real enemy isn't the supporters, but the game administrators. They need to attack the administrators to survive, and no one knows who the leader of the game is, though it's implied to be herself. Everyone agrees with Seong's plan, including herself, and they devise a strategy together. Shortly after, the lights go out for bedtime, but the supporters don't sleep and start attacking many of the opponents who are with Seong. Seong, Du, Bai, Cheo, and others hide under their beds, intentionally avoiding the battle. When morning comes, the lights turn on, and the soldiers arrive to check on the deceased players. Seong and her team pretend to be dead. Suddenly, They attack the soldiers, steal their weapons, and start firing back. They continue this assault until many soldiers are killed, forcing the remaining ones to retreat, except for one soldier who can't escape. Seong and her team secure him. Seong addresses everyone, asking them to gather the weapons from the fallen soldiers. She speaks to both the supporters and opponents, clarifying that she doesn't intend to kill anyone because their true conflict is with the game administrators, not each other. She urges anyone capable of using a weapon to join her cause. At this moment, several people, including Du, Bai, Cheo, and player number 246, whom Kanj knows, join Seong. However, many others do not join her, including some opponents. Seong disregards their refusal and forces a soldier to escort them out of the hall to meet with the game's leader. Suddenly, the soldiers attack them, sparking a fierce battle. The soldier accompanying Seong is killed. Seong asks her friend Bai to help her find the entrance to the administration area. She leaves the rest, herself, Cheo, Du, player number 246, and others, to fight the soldiers. As Seong and Bai proceed, more soldiers arrive and begin firing at them. The battle intensifies fiercely until several more soldiers arrive to assist Seong and Bai. They agree to fight together, but as the leader of the game, Seong kills them to prevent the game from succeeding. Meanwhile, Cheo finds herself losing the fight and asks Du to go find ammunition. Du finds some, but becomes psychologically unstable and collapses, unable to return to help Cheo. Concerned, Cheo leaves her group to find Du. When she returns with the ammunition, she discovers that soldiers have flooded the hall in large numbers. Sek, Myeom's mother, asks her to drop the weapon to avoid being killed, and Cheo complies. Player number 246 and a few others wait for Cheo, but their ammunition runs out, leading one of them to commit suicide. Player number 246 and a few others surrender, but the soldiers kill them. The soldiers continue to hunt down everyone until they reach Seong and Bai. The soldiers present include the leader and his assistant, though the leader is wearing a mask, so no one knows his identity. The leader speaks to Seong, telling her that to play the role of a hero, she must face consequences. Without any warnings, he kills Bai, causing Seong to collapse in grief and disbelief. She tries to attack the leader, but the soldiers stop her, and she can only cry out in anguish over her fallen friend Bai. This effectively quashes Seong's rebellion. In the final scene, Hwam, Seok, and Kim's men are still with Park, searching for the island. One night, one of Kim's men sees Park controlling the drones they use to scout the island and destroying it. The man realizes that Park is a traitor working for the game administrators. He decides to inform everyone, but Park kills him and throws his body into the water. This confirms Park's betrayal and reveals that when he saved Hwang earlier, it was under the leader's orders to prevent his brother Hwang from dying. Park also assists Hwang by monitoring him and keeping him away from the island, ensuring he remains unaware of the games. With this revelation, the season concludes. What Park will do next with Hwang, and whether Hwang will uncover his betrayal, remains to be seen in the next season's summary once it's produced. And that's all for now. Goodbye.